A heartbreaking end to the desperate search for a young mother and her 4- and 5-year-old daughters.
The kids were so polite. They was a mama girl. It's so heartbreaking. I don't even know what to do.
Not ever in my life will I ever get over this. I will never get over somebody doing this to my niece.
Great sadness. I'm here to tell you we discovered the bodies of Amara Banks and her 2 daughters, Kamaria and Zanaya.
Killing a woman and her 2 daughters reaches a plea deal. Arzel Ivory is charged in the deaths of Amara Jerica Banks and her 2 daughters, Kamaria Banks and Zanaya Ivory.
I know what I did has affected the world. I know I can't change anything by what I say, but I am truly sorry and I regret everything I did.
On February 16, 2020, authorities in Milwaukee discovered the bodies of 26-year-old mother Amara Jerica Banks and her 2 young daughters in a home garage. The victims were burned so severely that they were unrecognizable. Later examination revealed the heartbreaking truth. The little girls had been strangled, while their mother had endured a brutal beating before all 3 were killed and set ablaze. This horrific discovery came after Jerica and her daughters vanished on Saturday, February 8, 2020, just 1 day after they laid her 21-month-old son to rest following his own tragic death on February 7, 2020. Her family grew increasingly worried by her unusual silence, knowing she was already grieving her baby boy. When they couldn't locate her, Jerica's mother's worry evolved into dread, as her daughter would never simply disappear without contact. Adding to the mystery, Jerica's boyfriend, a man with a troubled history, had also vanished. This prompted police to open a missing persons case and launch an immediate investigation. What began as an urgent search for a mother and her children soon revealed an even darker truth. The killer had been living right near Jerica Banks. This is the story of a young family's mysterious disappearance and the devastating tragedy they suffered at the hands of someone they deeply trusted. Before we begin, we want to express our heartfelt condolences to the family and friends of Jerica. We also hope this story serves as a powerful reminder for everyone to be cautious about whom we let into our lives and whom we place our trust in. This story takes us to Milwaukee, a city in southeastern Wisconsin along the shores of Lake Michigan, industrial heritage with modern urban culture. The city is well known for its rich brewing history. According to crime data from 2023, Milwaukee's violent crime rate stands notably higher than the national average, with particular concerns in certain neighborhoods. The city has seen fluctuating crime statistics, with periods of increase in homicides and violent offenses, especially in recent years. However, local law enforcement and community initiatives continue working to address these challenges through various prevention and intervention programs. Jerica Banks was born on March 14, 1993. She grew up in a large and loving family with 5 siblings. She was adopted into the family at the age of 5. This fact, however, did not change the depth of her parents' love for her. They cherished her as if she were their own. Her passion extended beyond music to all forms of art. Despite her young age, Jerica dreamed of having a big family, just like the one she grew up in. This desire led her to start a family with her longtime boyfriend, Arzel J.J. Ivory. Though they never married, the two shared a strong bond. Together, they had their first daughter, 5-year-old Zanaya Ivory. However, following Zanaya's birth, Jerica and Arzel decided to go their separate ways. Later, Jerica welcomed another daughter, 4-year-old Kamaria Banks. In 2018, she rekindled her relationship with Arzel. Their reunion brought new hope, and the couple had a son together, Arzel Ivory Jr. Sadly, their son was born with health challenges, presenting new struggles for the family. Nevertheless, Jerica and Arzel were devoted parents who worked tirelessly to provide their son with the best possible medical care. Despite their hardships, they remained determined to build a loving home and overcome life's obstacles together. Jerica adored her wonderful children. Her daughters, Zanaya and Kamaria, were described as inseparable, always curious, full of energy, and constantly by each other's side. They loved dressing alike and sharing everything, so much so that people often mistook them for twins. Their youngest brother, Arzel, was a source of joy, always giggling, and his sisters cherished playing with him and carrying him around. At some point, Jerica's boyfriend Arzel became her ex-boyfriend. Although they were no longer together, they maintained a mutual understanding when it came to co-parenting. Arzel was a committed father who played an active role in their children's lives and frequently visited the family. While the exact reason behind their breakup remains unclear, It is believed to be linked to an incident in 2018. Though Arzel had no prior criminal convictions or jail time, he was arrested once in 2018 for a domestic violence battery case involving Jerica. No charges were filed in that incident, but police intervention did occur. In the aftermath, Jerica focused on building her independence and creating distance between herself and Arzel. Despite Arzel expressing a desire to marry her one day, Jerica had no romantic interest in pursuing a future with him. Their communication revolved solely around their children. To make a fresh start, Jerica worked tirelessly, taking on extra shifts in a hospital laundry room and saving every penny. Her dream was to move into a new apartment and begin a new chapter with her kids. However, just as Jerica was preparing to turn the page and embrace a new beginning, tragedy struck. Her son, Arzel, fell gravely ill and passed away in February 2020 due to respiratory complications, shortly before his second birthday. Arzel had suffered from asthma, which had worsened over time. Jerica was devastated by the loss but channeled all her energy into giving him a heartfelt farewell. The grief weighed heavily on her, but she tried to hold herself together for the sake of her two daughters, determined to carry on and create a better future for them. She even organized a fund to cover the expenses of a Lion King-themed funeral, honoring her son Arzel's memory as it was his favorite cartoon. On February 7, 2020, Jerica endured one of the most painful days of her life, laying her beloved son to rest. Jerica had carefully planned who would speak at the service, but during the ceremony, Arzel unexpectedly rushed to the front without her consent. Though furious, Jerica chose to stay composed, knowing it was neither the time nor place to confront him.
To get up and read and say some words, but then he got up and she was angry that he got up and she says, why is he up there? Why is he saying it? She was just really, really, really angry with him. I don't think I've ever seen her that angry.
After the funeral, Jerica and her two daughters left without Arzel and returned to her sister's house. There, they sought a moment of solace, sharing a glass of wine and comforting each other. Jerica's sister suggested they make plans to help the family move forward from the trauma they had endured. They decided on a brunch outing the following day, with Jerica promising to collect her car while they enjoyed some much-needed time together. In the early hours of February 8, Jerica and her daughters arrived back at their apartment on the 5900 block of North Sherman Boulevard. Just after about 1:30 a.m., their return home took a horrifying turn. A neighbor heard a woman's desperate screams, pleading for her life and begging someone to stop. The woman, barefoot and bleeding from her mouth as she ran through the parking lot, was Jerica. At the same time, another neighbor living next door reported hearing loud, violent banging noises, as if someone was being slammed repeatedly against a wall. The terror of that day left an indelible mark on all who heard or witnessed it, hinting at a tragedy that was just beginning to unfold.
First response from the Milwaukee Police Department came after reports from witnesses who said they heard and saw a woman yelling for help, arguing with a man outside of an apartment building on the north side early in the morning on Saturday. They called police to report it. Police arrived at the scene but said they could not locate the 911 caller or any disturbance.
That big picture window, that would be my living room. That would be her living room. I hear like loud thumping and I hear a lady screaming, help, help, help.
Peering carefully out her window, the neighbor saw Jerica frantically screaming for help while a man forcefully dragged her back inside and slammed the door shut behind them. Alarmed and fearing for Jerica's life, she quickly dialed 911, urgently reporting that she could still hear Jerica's desperate cries through the walls and pleading for someone to check on her. Police arrived within minutes, but they faced a critical obstacle. They couldn't determine exactly where the screams had come from. They cruised slowly through the complex with their windows down, hoping for any sign or sound of trouble. After parking for about 10 minutes and hearing nothing further, they eventually left the scene. The 911 dispatcher had classified the call as a priority 2, meaning it didn't warrant an immediate response. Vital details about the caller's location were never fully communicated to the responding officers, a lapse that would later be identified as a significant and tragic oversight. As morning arrived and the scheduled brunch drew near, Jerica's family began reaching out. Texts and calls poured in, all intended to confirm their plans and check on Jerica and the girls. Yet there was no response. Concern began to grow among her family members. Jerica was known for her attentiveness and never ignored calls, especially from her loved ones. This sudden silence struck her sister as deeply troubling and was the first clear sign that something was terribly wrong. Jerica's mother, Valeria Banks, knew her daughter's habits well. Jerica followed a structured routine and would never go silent without a valid reason. With no contact from Jerica, everyone felt an escalating sense of dread. Something was terribly wrong. Although Jerica had been profoundly affected by the recent death of her son, total silence was out of character. On February 9, 2020, authorities officially launched a missing persons investigation following reports from her worried family. Initially, no one knew where Jerica and her daughters had gone, but investigators began by examining her apartment. There were no signs of forced entry, but a few troubling details caught their attention. A hole in the bedroom wall, a missing comforter, and a blood-stained napkin. While nothing seemed overtly chaotic, these clues raised serious concerns. Police soon contacted Jerica's ex-boyfriend, Arzal Ivory, by phone since he was unavailable to meet in person. He admitted to having argued with Jerica the night she disappeared but claimed he had slept in his truck afterward and then gone to work the next day without hearing from her. His dismissive tone and evasive responses during the call aroused further suspicion, especially when officers learned he was planning to leave the state for work and only return on February 21 for questioning. Why was a man, supposedly the father of one of the missing children, so disturbingly calm about their disappearance? An Amber Alert was issued for Jerica and her children, but by then, nearly a week had passed since they were last seen. With a search warrant in hand, police returned to Jerica's apartment accompanied by a cadaver dog. Their worst fears were confirmed when the dog detected traces of human blood inside a closet. And forensic investigators also detected the presence of human blood inside a closet in the room. Further examination uncovered more blood stains beneath the carpet, which appeared to have been hastily scrubbed with bleach. While Arzal remained the prime suspect, concrete evidence was still lacking. On February 15, 2020, Arzal's father, who lived 600 miles away in Memphis, received a chilling call. His son confessed to killing Jerica and her daughters and burned the bodies. Now he had fled to Memphis to start fresh. His father immediately alerted the Memphis Police Department, hoping to stop his son from causing further harm. Arzal was promptly arrested, though he remained disturbingly composed during his confession. When interviewed by a Milwaukee police officer who traveled to Memphis, the complaint indicates Arzal Ivory said things had been tense between himself and Jerica since the death of their son. He stated that Jerica had not wanted him around anymore because he reminded her of their son. The funeral for the son was on February 7, 2020, and afterward, Arzal indicated he went to work. When he went to Jerica's apartment around 1:30 a.m. on February 8, Jerica was angry that Arzal had gone to work and yelled at him that he did not care about the death of their son. Ivory claimed he and Jerica had an argument and he then grabbed Jerica and pushed her head into the wall 2 times. Arzal then indicated he strangled Jerica with both hands. The complaint says Arzal then stated he did not want the children to live in a world where they did not have their mother. He indicated he then strangled both the children. The complaint says Arzal then tried to hide the bodies of all 3 by burning them.
Zell Ivory, today court documents were released showing that he is now charged with 3 felony crimes of first-degree intentional homicide. Now, when it comes to him, the things that he detailed in this criminal complaint that he supposedly admitted to were just gory, troubling, and heartbreaking. So, of course, we are not going to share those details due to the graphic nature of this crime.
Arzal also told detectives he planned on starting a new life in Memphis and admitted that he told his father that he had killed Jerica and the 2 children. However, he refused to reveal the location of the bodies initially. Under mounting pressure, he finally disclosed their location. Tragically, Jerica and her daughters were found dead in a garage near his former residence. Their bodies had been burned. Autopsies later confirmed that all 3 had been strangled, although specific details surrounding the exact sequence of events and Arzal's motive remained unclear.
Great sadness, I'm here to tell you we discovered the bodies of Amara Banks and her 2 daughters, Kamaria and Zanaya. And that led us to the garage in the 4700 block of West Burleigh. You have to also understand that foul play was not an initial piece of this investigation. It was a missing investigation that escalated.
How we can do what we can to reduce horrible stories like this.
Young children and a young mother to be slain like that, you know, that's not right.
You got to be a heartless monster to do this to someone.
Her kids were so polite. They was a mama girls.
Person that's in your life, you need to try to find out about them, because your lover, friend, or whatever could be your worst enemy.
It's so heartbreaking. I don't even know what to do.
Not ever in my life will I ever get over this. I will never get over somebody doing this to my niece.
How could someone commit such a heinous act, especially against their own children? He also mentioned that Jerica held Arzel responsible for their baby's death. Baby Arzel was born with severe respiratory problems and was scheduled for a procedure to improve his breathing. On the day of his passing, Arzel attempted to drop him off at daycare, but they refused, noting that the child was too ill. The staff advised him to take Arzel to the hospital since he hadn't eaten or taken his medication. Arzel agreed, carrying the baby back to the car. Instead of heading straight to the hospital, he drove to another daycare to collect his other children. Along the way, he stopped at a store to buy snacks, leaving baby Arzel unattended for some time. When he returned to the car, he found Arzel had slumped over against the door. Instead of seeking immediate help, he repositioned the baby in the car seat and waited over an hour without contacting anyone, not even Jerica. When the baby began making gasping sounds, Arzel attempted to revive him but ultimately failed. By the time he took his son to the hospital, it was too late. Baby Arzel was declared dead. At the hospital, Jerica was informed of what had happened. The news left her shattered and furious. She believed she could never forgive Arzel for his inaction when their child needed urgent care. Her family later said that Arzel had effectively taken 4 lives that day. Following the funeral on February 8, Jerica, consumed by grief and anger, confronted him, shouting and blaming him for their son's death. Arzel alleged that during the heated exchange, Jerica grabbed a knife and cut his wrist. In response, he pushed her, causing her head to hit the wall twice, which would later become the focus of the police investigation. Jerica started bleeding from her mouth and tried to escape. A neighbor saw her barefoot, running outside while screaming. However, Arzel dragged her back inside and strangled her, claiming she didn't resist, which led him to believe she wanted to die. With Jerica gone, Arzel said he couldn't let their children live without their mother. He kissed Zanaya, who was his daughter, told her "Daddy loves you" and that her mother wanted to be in heaven with her, and then he strangled her, the complaint said. Arzel returned to the girl's bedroom, woke up Kamaria, kissed her and told her the same thing before strangling her too. He initially considered dismembering their bodies but stopped when he saw a bone, which likely explained the blood traces police would later find. Arzel wrapped their bodies, placed them in his car, and drove around Milwaukee. Remembering a garage with a broken lock at his old apartment, he decided to hide them there. After a failed attempt to burn the bodies, he returned with gasoline, set them on fire, and then fled to Memphis, purchasing a gun along the way. Arzel's calm demeanor as he recounted the events left officers stunned. He justified his actions by claiming that since he had brought his children into the world, he had the right to take them out. He was charged with 3 counts of intentional homicide and appeared in court with his head bowed. Despite the horrific nature of his crimes, he initially entered a not guilty plea and was held on a $750,000 bond, with a judge denying his request to lower it to $2,000. Arzel later changed his plea to not guilty by reason of mental illness, citing a diagnosis of schizophrenia and previous suicide attempts. However, after multiple evaluations, a doctor determined in September 2020 that there was insufficient evidence to support his defense. He was deemed mentally stable and fully aware of his actions at the time of the crime. With his mental illness plea dismissed, Arzel changed his plea to guilty on 3 counts of first-degree intentional homicide in April 2021 as part of a plea deal. Under state law, he faced a mandatory life sentence, with the only remaining question being whether he would ever be eligible for supervised release. His attorney argued for the possibility of release after 40 years due to Arzel's mental health struggles. Before sentencing, Arzel expressed remorse in court. "I know what I did has affected the world. I know I can't change anything with what I say, but I'm truly sorry.
I know what I did has affected the world. I know I can't change anything by what I say, but I am truly sorry, and I regret everything I did."
Despite his defense attorneys had requested the possibility of an early release after 40 years of confinement, was denied by the judge. On July 16, 2021, Arzel Ivory was sentenced to life in prison without any possibility of supervised release.
At this point, Mr. Ivory, the court finds that the offense that you have committed, the offenses that you've committed, based upon the entirety of the record that's before me, does merit as to each count. And these counts will be concurrent to one another, but as to each count, your sentence will be life imprisonment. And the court has determined, based upon all of the factors that I stated, that you are not eligible for release to extended supervision.
Jerica's family believed that while justice had been served, it did not bring them true closure. Valeria Spinner Bank, her mother, expressed a complex mix of feelings, even sympathizing with Arzul. She noted the absence of any of his family members during the court hearings, questioning why they would abandon him despite his heinous acts. Valeria also shared how her views on the death penalty had changed. Previously an opponent, she now felt that certain individuals like Arzul should never walk free again. "This is the worst thing I've ever gone through. No parent should have to bury a child. Not only a child but your grandchildren too," said Valeria Banks. There were concerns about the handling of the initial 911 call from Jerica's neighbor. Key information had been omitted from the logged call, resulting in a slow police response. Furthermore, an Amber Alert for the missing children was not issued until a week later, only after Jerica's family relentlessly pushed for media attention on the case. The 911 operator involved resigned before the internal investigation into the mishandling of the call was concluded. The impact on Jerica's family and their community was immense and heartbreaking. The loss of Jerica and her children left a void that could never be filled. Her family, already reeling from the recent passing of baby Arzul, was shattered when they lost Jerica and her daughters only a month later. Jerica had a red car that she lovingly called Big Red. Following her murder in February, along with her 2 daughters, the Banks family began the painful process of reclaiming her belongings. As they sorted through her property, questions arose about the car's fate. In a gesture of compassion, they decided to gift it to a mother in need. The recipient of the keys, Amani Smith, is a mother who had been unable to work due to a lack of reliable transportation. She expressed deep gratitude for the gift, which brought hope and relief during a difficult time.
And now the family of a mother who was killed along with her children are helping out another mother in need.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I so appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Just take care of it like she did. That was her car. I know that she would really be, would like the fact that that her car was going to go to another mother with a child. Imani, the keys.
Okay. Oh, thank you, Val.
A GoFundMe campaign was established by Jerica's family to help cover funeral expenses and settle her estate, including any outstanding debts that had gone unpaid due to her untimely passing. The hope is that the memory of Jerica and her daughters will continue to live on in the hearts of everyone who knew and loved them. What are your thoughts on this tragic case? The couple was clearly devastated by the loss of their child, but do you believe that Ivory's actions were driven by mental health issues? We'd love to hear your perspective in the comments. Thank you once again for watching another video. If you appreciate the way we bring you these stories, or if you learned something new today, please like this video and consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. As always, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments section below. Your experiences or advice may resonate with someone else. We'll be back soon with another story. Until then, take care and goodbye for now.